पॉलिसी बाजार पर 1 करोड़ रुपए का टर्म लाइफ इंश्योरेंस केवल 450 रुपए महीने से शुरू। वाव!
Let's now go across to our two guests to discuss S. Jaishankar exposing Western hypocrisy on Pakistan. Dr. Swasti Rao, Associate Fellow, Manohar Parrikar Institute for Defence Studies and Analysis, Europe and Eurasia Centre, and Anil Trigunayat, former diplomat. Many thanks both of you for joining us here. Dr. Swasti Rao, it appears that India is very clearly saying that it's not so much India's dependence on Russian defense equipment, as has been the commentary, that is the reason for India not being able to condemn Russia outrightly, but the timing of when Russia stepped into the defense sphere in India being extremely critical. Is that what External Affairs Minister explained today for the world to know, that Russia has stood the test of time for India?
Good evening, Maha. And see, I think a lot of times when you're asking these questions or trying to sort of nitpick on certain words here and there, it probably starts to look as if it is only because of our defense exports or defense imports that we are reliant on Russia, or that we do not wish to condemn it because of our, because of the fact that we want to use Russia to manage China. I think it's larger than that. See, when you ask a question of the sort to a serving foreign affairs minister, the answer is bound to operate in the matrix of keeping national interests first, navigating bilateral relations in the most favorable way possible. All countries do that. So if the External Affairs Minister is reiterating that India is buying oil in the larger interest of its 1.3 billion population, it is directly commensurate with Europe buying time to phase out its oil imports from Russia over a period of 6 months. They could not do it in a jiffy like US or UK did. Okay. Similarly, it is also commensurate with the view that Europe will be able to afford to phase out, natural gas imports from Russia only after a year of consistent diversification efforts, right? So this is something that we need to understand, that it is not coming from not trying to or not willing to condemn Russia. See, we may not be willing to condemn Russia officially for a variety of reasons, right? What the External Affairs Minister said there is obviously one of them. But let me also tell you that because at least I work very closely with the Europeans, I do not think that there is any dearth of understanding on why is it that India is not willing to condemn Russia officially, because there are two ways to look at it. We could either just play the semantics and just condemn and do nothing about it, or we could do what we are doing right now, which is to, manage and straddle these two multipolar engagements that we have, and do something constructive about trying to cater to food security and fertilizer shortages, etc.
Is that why, Anil Trigunayat, the pressure that India was feeling from the Western nations in the first half of last year has now given way to the Western world, including Europe, now looking at India for using its influence with Moscow to bring an end to the war?
Number one is, I would like to say that India has maintained a principled stand. It is not only just because of buying oil or because of the arms and ammunition. You know that we had also abstained when the United States started bombing Iraq, or for that matter, Libya. So there have been these unilateral interventions, and India was in the UN Security Councils in Libya, and I have seen that this had cost us. But at the same time, we have maintained a principled stand. And what is India's stand all along has been? India's stand is that we stand for dialogue and diplomacy. We stand for the UN Charter, for the territorial integrity and sovereignty of all countries, and including, of course, Ukraine. While we also mentioned in the beginning that Russia's security concerns needed to be taken into account. That was the only thing. As far as our friendship with Russia is concerned, I mean, you have seen 1971, you have seen the first part of the Cold War, when Pakistan is a non-NATO ally of the United States. The Europeans and everybody was just banking on this during the Cold War era. So we have seen it. We were on the other side. I mean, even though we were non-aligned, leader of the non-aligned world, but we suffered the brunt because of the way the Western countries just condoned whatever Pakistan was doing and was emboldened in that because of their myopic geopolitical reasons. And so I think that we need to take that into account, and I'm happy that Dr. Jaishankar showed them the mirror, essentially, because the countries begin to talk from today. They don't even go back to 20 years. that why did the United States went and invaded Iraq by manufacturing evidence? I mean, nobody talks about it. This is not a justification for Russia invading. But at the same time, I mean, you can't be holier than thou. And I'm happy that Secretary Blinken frankly understood. And he said that we were not there when India needed us.
And we don't even need to go back too much in time as well to see where the trust between India and Russia, has developed and continues to remain. Dr. Swasti Rao, when India was grappling with the situation with regards to Afghanistan, with the hasty pullout of the US troops from Afghanistan, it was Russia that in some sense was keeping India in the loop of what was really happening in the region. After all, their NSA traveled to India twice during that period when India was left grappling alone to understand the situation, isn't it?
Well, Maha, see, that's precisely what it is. I mean, the fact that we need to engage a different set of countries for our continental concerns, for our outreach to Central Asia, for retaining a presence in Afghanistan, and Russia is there. But it does not mean, and let me also tell you that even in this, we should not become very, we should not overstretch this so-called friendship with Russia. I think all countries are keeping the national interest first. And of course, with Russia, we have had, I would say, a positive, so to say, record. But let me also tell you, right here, that Russia is also calibrating its approach with, say, our arch rivals, Pakistan or China. For the longest time, Russia did not, send them weapons or sell them weapons. But we have also seen how Russia has sold S-400s to China, for instance, or, so those red lines are also blurred by Russia, and India also needs to take a realistic, view of it. So I think the long story short, what we need to understand is that I think Europe also understands this, and like Ambassador was just saying, that we have been very confident in coming out and saying this to the world at large, not just to Europe. To everyone else, that no one understands it better than India, that the war is not in the interest of the global South, particularly, not just the West and Russia, because, disruptions, etc., in energy prices, food and fertilizers. But our stand has been our traditional commitment to strategic autonomy. It's there, and we negate the alliance worldview of looking at the world. We do not believe in it. It's not something that we're doing right now when Russia has gone to war with Ukraine or something. We have maintained a multi-vector foreign policy, which is best suited to a middle order power like India, which is an emerging economy. And we need to engage with a set of countries. Now, I feel we do not need to overstretch any bit of, relationship here. It is important to show the mirror to whoever is trying to be holier than thou. But at the same time, I think pragmatism calls that we remain realistic, because even when you're talking about Russia, we are talking about a Russia, and especially now, India will be forced to somewhere recalibrate and become more realistic in its relationship with Russia, because after the war, regardless of of whether Russia loses it or wins it, it is going to be a diminished power, which will be pushed further into the lap of China.
All right.
And will get a different set of expectations and demands on us. So I think realistic is perhaps the best.
A realistic approach here. Yes, absolutely. Anil Trigunayat, last 30 seconds, sir. I just want to ask you, is that why when S. Jaishankar was asked by the interviewer whether India is an ally of Russia, he said, we are in alliance with no one. It's a Western terminology.
Well, this is true. I mean, India has not been an ally to any country in that sense of the term as it is perceived in the West. Because they have this aligned mindset that whatever they say, if you don't follow that, that means you are not their ally, you are somebody else's ally. I mean, that is not the terminology, that is not the kind of approach India has. And that's the reason we talk about our strategic autonomy. Because we take views on the basis of the considered merit and our own national interest.
All right. Anil Trigunayat and Dr. Swasti Rao, both of you, many thanks for joining us on this show.